Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Ladies with Tradies, Working the Trade, Living the Life. I'm very pumped today because we've got a subject matter expert in the house today. Well,
Oh,
she's actually got a background that looks like Cyclone Alfred's hitting. So we've got the beautiful Lex Stanley from Vastly Digital, who's going to come in and talk, or has come in to talk to us about making sure that your digital footprint and how you are showing up online and that all things digital marketing, that you're getting your best bang for your buck and really teaches a bit about how that looks for tradie business. So thanks so much for joining us, Lex. We missed out last week, but it's good to have you back after you've just survived Cyclone Alfred.
yeah. Thanks so much for having me. Yeah, it's been a wild week to say the least. But yeah, we're back on deck, and thank you for rescheduling and allowing us to. The audio might not have been very good with the windows rattling last week, so.
That's it. So, Lex, tell us all about Vastly Digital. What do you do? Who do you do it for? Like, give us a bit of the rundown, mate, and the story.
Sure. So I started Vastly really probably about 4 or 5 years ago, and I kind of dabbled in and out with it. I came from a history of working in large agencies, but I'm also from a family of small business owners. So I sort of have seen both sides of the coin there in terms of working for the agency, but also working for the business. And something that I always felt really passionately about was genuinely helping small businesses to grow. And I think one of the challenges of working with some of those bigger agencies is like any big corporation, they sometimes lose sight of the why and what they're really doing. And so when I decided to go out on my own, I really wanted to make sure that I was building something that kept the client in mind. I always imagine that it's my mum and dad's business that we're working with. So that's kind of how we started. Originally, I started doing a bit of everything, and then I kind of went back to my roots, where almost all the way through my digital marketing career, I've always worked with trades and services, home improvement businesses, anything in that kind of sector. And I think, I'm originally from Bathurst, so I think there's a little bit of bogan in me that like prefers to just talk to tradies, rather than lawyers and things like that. But also I think I've just grown understanding of that sort of industry and those businesses. And I'm just always curious about them. I love learning about those businesses and working with them, and also helping them to, take their business vision and work out how we kind of, I guess, communicate that in a digital landscape and get the right sorts of clients for them. So we've kind of carved out a little bit of a niche there where we focus on those trades and services and home improvement businesses. So that could be anything from, we've got natural stone and porcelain suppliers that are importers with large showrooms, down to plumbers and sparkies, so a real sort of wide range of clients that we serve. But yeah, those are our favorites. So that's who we work with.
Yeah, and Lex, I love you mentioned, a bit of your background there being from Bathurst. And I think when I came across your business, well, Maddie, actually, your amazing offsider, contacted us, and I'm like, oh my gosh, Lex has got a very similar vibe to us. And you just that bogan word made me laugh because it's, like whilst we run professional services businesses, you and I, and we do serve trades industry. I think the big disconnect that can happen at times between tradie business owners and I guess the white collar specialists like
Yeah.
ourselves is the translation of what's required. And so that's what drew me to sort of look into what you guys did a bit more and to get to know you. So
Yeah.
that's been
Yeah. And
fun.
I think it's a really good point. And I think it's one of the things that our clients enjoy about us is that I think like what we do is quite technical, right? Like and it can feel really complex, but our clients aren't dumb, and so we one of the things that we want to do is be able to relate to them and work with them and have this relationship with them where we can explain it and we can take them through it so they have buy-in and understanding. It's not this like pat you on the head, don't worry your little tradie brain about it, we've got it. It's like let's talk about the execution and the technicality about what we're doing in a way that makes sense to you, so that when we're explaining what we're doing and why and the decisions we're making, you've got buy-in and you go, I'm a part of that decision, you know? It's not just that, well, I just have to trust you because I don't understand it. So yeah, that's why I love doing these podcasts and things as well, because it gives us an opportunity to kind of just talk about what we do and how we do it, and I guess empower people who maybe have been made to feel like they shouldn't be able to understand it,
Yeah.
to take a bit of ownership of that, and take that power back to go, well, I can understand this, so explain it to me, you know, so I can make an educated decision.
Oh, mate, absolutely. And that's the thing. It's that empowering the people like in the businesses, the tradies to like I always say you've got to understand enough about this segment or this part of your business in order to be able to recruit or engage the people to do it for you because
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure you've been through this in your own business. You do all of the stuff at the grassroots yourself. Like you are having a crack at a lot of different things. Primarily our guys from a marketing perspective survive on a bit of word of mouth and maybe a bit of organic social media. They might have tried,
Yeah.
maybe the ladies have done a bit of a whipped up Wix website or something like that just to get a go. And they grow, but then what got you here won't get you there. So that's where
Yeah.
this is like yours and
And
ours come into the fold.
totally. And on the flip side of that, I also see businesses going too quickly into these full-fledged digital marketing things. And, you know, the reality is for especially the larger agencies, you know, you're talking to a salesperson who has a sales quota. And to be blunt, they don't give a fuck. Like they don't care, you know, they're just trying to get the sale, right? So for me, there's a real duty of care in that, of going, well, we need to understand about the business, understand where you're at. Even a mate of mine who's a plumber came to me the other day and he's like, oh, my other friend, he does digital and he's given me a quote, but you're, my mate. So I wanted to talk to you. And I was like, absolutely do not be doing digital marketing right now. Like, you are not ready for that. It's way too much of a commitment. You're already like, there's all these other things that you need to do first. And, for example, we creating a Google business profile. And I said, just focus on your suburb only right now. Let's optimize it for that. He's already number one. He literally just started and now he's starting to get calls there. And he was getting ready to fork out $3,000 or $4,000 a month in advertising. And he's just started. I'm like, no, 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 no. So knowing when to start and when to not yet is equally as important. And so, understanding that is super important. Otherwise you do just get burned by agencies where you feel like you're
Yes,
white knuckling it through.
that's it, Lex. And that's again what's attracted us to talk with you and sort of align with you. It's so let's go there a bit around. So you talked about there is a salesperson usually with the larger agencies. I've even had another personal experience. I thought I'd gotten this out of my tradie husband, but now he's started another business as a fishing charter operator. Now the blue water fishing digital marketing agencies are starting to contact him, and I'm like, we're back where we were like 7 years ago when you started Dune Build, darling, and you're telling these people who are trying to take your money, oh yeah, oh that sounds good, and then I find an email in an inbox that you're having a meeting with someone. I'm like, woo the fuck up, mate.
Yeah.
So because that is, well, that's been my experience, and you'll have had and heard a lot more stories on this along
Mm.
the vein. How does it go? Like, if I'm a tradie business owner and I'm like, I know I need to be doing something, is what say Vastly Digital does
Yeah.
for me, or yeah, you talked about when's the right time or when's
Yeah.
not. Give us a bit of insight.
Yeah, so we always encourage businesses for as long as possible to max out what they can do in terms of effort, right? So I always say to people, you need to have time or money, right? And if you don't have time and you don't have money, well, you need to find one of them, right? Because if you don't have time or money, then there's really nothing that we can do.
Yeah.
So in the initial stages, when you've got this new business and you're trying to grow it organically, you need to dedicate the time, right? So time looks like, posting on your Google business profile and setting that up, and, making sure you have all your services on there and writing your description properly and putting your business hours and doing everything that you need to do there, posting on your socials, creating content, doing all of that manual stuff. posting in your community groups, right? You'd be surprised how often, even going back through old posts, maybe you don't win that job, but like one of my friends who does social media management, she will always comment, this is what I do, because she's had people that go back searching through the group and then go, oh, she sounds good, I'm going to contact her, right? So putting that effort in, or like, let's say you're a sparky or a plumber, it's about cold calling real estate businesses, speaking to builders, building that network. So that's the time part, right? The most common thing we then see is that sort of transition from people being on the tools and then, the business starts to build and they're on the tools more. So they want to continue to drive business, but they don't necessarily have the time. Yep. So then you want to start investing money. But the hardest thing for us as digital marketing agencies, and selfishly, we try to look for businesses who have already spent on digital marketing that we can then make it way better, right? Because the hardest thing for us is you're a brand new business that has never marketed before. We're starting from a baseline of zero information, right? So we have no idea how your website will convert. We have no idea what the competition is like in your area. There's so many unknown factors. And so that's not to say that we can't do it or you shouldn't do it, but it's something for a business to understand that there is going to be a testing phase, right? There's going to be a learning. We obviously go in with our best guess, and what we know. Yep. But a great example is we work with two painting and roof restoration businesses that are in similar areas, but servicing different ends of the same sort of area. And we were like, brilliant, this campaign works so good, works brilliant. This is going to be piss easy. And then we built the second campaign and we're like, what is happening? Like, we cannot get the conversion. And so it took a lot of testing and changing and tweaking of things to get it right.
Yeah.
And that's normal, right? When marketing, it's not maths, you know what I mean? It's like 1 + 1 doesn't always equal 2. So there is usually a bit of a testing phase. Where it can be really challenging for a business is if you don't have the cash flow to make it through that testing phase and you have to get a return on that investment immediately, you're going to struggle. You will be, the expression I always use is like white knuckling it through. So,
exactly what I say.
Yeah. So you don't want to do that. Yeah. You want to almost be able to go, right, we know that we've got consistent work coming through our partnerships, through our builders, through our real estate relationships, through word of mouth, through referral. We have a surplus of money here and we want to reinvest that back into the growth of the business. So they're the sort of questions I would be asking myself is like, obviously find out from different agencies what sort of costs might be involved and have the industry to industry is going to depend what is going to be the most effective. Even your geographical area is going to depend on what's going to be the most effective thing for you. But you need to be prepared to trust that agency, and hopefully you've chosen the right one. But to trust them for a period of a few months, potentially. It's not to say that you're going to get zero return, but it might be that you make your money back in the first month and then you double the money in the second. And then in the third, you're like, okay, now we're really starting to hit our straps here. So it's really important that you've made that decision with a surplus of cash, not like, all right, I can invest $1,000, but I've got to get 3 back, because that puts pressure on everyone as well. And we've even been guilty where we're going, oh my God, like quick, we make a decision. We've got to make sure they get their money back. And it's like, we're not necessarily making the best decisions in that example. So maximize the time part and then make sure you have money to invest and, talk to different people about what the recommendation is. Just because one person says one recommendation doesn't mean it's the right one. It's like if you go to a chiropractor with a backache, they're going to suggest chiropractic techniques, right? You go to a physio, they're going to do something different. You go to a Reiki healer, they're going to do something different. So making sure that you've explored all the tools in the toolbox, but before committing to what you're going to do moving forward. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. So there's a few things I want to dig around a bit more in there. So you talked about the time factor, and I guess the thing that I've observed and where people get a bit gun shy, I suppose. You talked about that you have to be prepared to commit a level of time and financial investment for result because it's not going to be immediate. So I guess that's the first kind of just watch it a bit. Anybody who's promising the earth is probably full of shit in the
Yeah.
first instance. On the other end, though, Lex, and I've gone through this myself, is the companies that keep, you might have invested 3, 4, 5 months in, and you've been holding on, and you're like patient with the process, and the response is, oh, it's all still brand awareness, or it's, they're
Oh, run.
so,
Run.
yeah, so give us a bit of insight around that, because if someone's come to a business or is working with a business and they're not seeing the result, but they have trusted the process, where do we, like, what's reasonable, like, and what sorts of questions should we be asking, or should the tradie businesses be asking to make sure they're not just being bullshitted?
Yeah, so my thoughts, generally speaking, is for any small, small to medium business, brand awareness is not necessarily important, really. Like we would sort of talk about it more like brand discovery. So what I mean by that is, you're not going to go and sponsor the AFL to get brand awareness. You're not Officeworks, right? You're not Freedom Furniture. So it's not necessarily about people everywhere recognizing your brands. Like that's not going to give you good bang for your buck, right? You're not going to get good return on investment for that. But it is about making sure that your business is in front of the right people at the right time. And that could be a little bit earlier in their buying cycle. So that would be, a form of awareness within the right context. So, for example, if you're a natural stone and porcelain, supplier or business, you might want to target people at the renovation stage or at the purchasing of a new home stage, for example. But, you're not going to target renters. Do you know what I mean? Like you don't just want to have your ad, a billboard in front of absolutely everyone necessarily. So it's really about making sure that you're maximizing the dollars that you're spending. But all of your campaign really should be focused on conversion, driving leads, driving a measurable outcome. And then as you grow, there might be, more expansion, into more brand awareness in your local area and things like that. But ultimately, every digital marketing campaign you run should be about driving inquiry, driving leads, and then maybe some brand discovery as a part of filling that funnel, right? But ultimately, what you want to be talking to anyone about is what is the plan for driving conversions? Even if they're talking about including an awareness part, it needs to be in conjunction with a conversion campaign.
Awesome. And I mean, this is probably how long's a piece of string type of question, but do your best for us. What sort of timeline should people be trusting the process for? If we've engaged, obviously you've got to go through a process of discovery of the business and understanding and unpacking them first. Like, what sort of timeline would a small like SME be expecting to see results?
Yeah, look, I would say it's not so much, you should always be seeing results, right? Like we should always be seeing progress. So progress should be happening all the time. So if you're not seeing any progress and someone's telling you to hang on, that's not the situation. When we talk about seeing results, what we're really talking about is seeing the level of return on investment that you would expect from a campaign like that. So that could take a few months, right? When we're talking about performance marketing, and by that I mean, say, Meta ads and Google ads, SEO can really depend. It depends on your industry. It depends on where you're already sitting. It depends on how long your business has been around for. There's so many different factors. But even with SEO, you should always be seeing progress. So progress should be happening all the time. To see, we sort of say, okay, we think we can generate 100 leads a month for your budget, for your performance marketing budget. We would expect that to take 3 to 4 months to get there. But we don't have 0 leads the first month, 0 leads the second month, and then all of a sudden hit 100, right? We go, all right, we got 30 leads in the first month. That's good. Okay, we got 60 leads in the second. All right, now we have 80 in the third, and then we're going to hit that 100, you know. So it's more about the progress as opposed to you shouldn't not see anything.
Yeah.
And if something is taking longer, like an example of that painting business that I mentioned, you know, they should be talking to you about that. So, you know, we were sort of really open with that client going, it's a bit weird, right? It's a bit weird. It's not doing what we expected it to do.
Yep.
Here's our plan. We're going to optimize this page. We're going to turn this campaign off for now because it's not working as well. We're going to funnel it over here. This seems to be working better. So we're going to make a few changes here. So they should be in touch with you about what changes are happening, what to expect, all of that sort of stuff. Yeah.
Amazing. So good. Such a great answer. Thank you. So you did start bandying a few bits of digital lingo in there. Google Ads, SEO, Meta, WTF, mate. Give us a bit of a rundown.
Yeah, so look, we digital agencies obviously have lots of different services. We focus on those three primarily because they're the most effective and the most relevant for, you know, our trades and the home improvement style businesses. So when we're talking about SEO, we're talking about search engine optimization. So that is the process of basically editing a website, writing content, doing some technical back-end kind of stuff, and things kind of across the web to essentially get Google to choose you for certain search terms as the number one or number two result. So that search engine optimization, with that, you pay someone directly to do that activity. So for example, you would hire us and we do the SEO activity. So 100% of that revenue comes to us and we action it. Then you've got Google Ads, which is where you pay to be in that top result. So for some businesses, it can be an and or, you know, it's like, well, we start with Google Ads, and then if we have a capacity, like one of our clients, for example, is a caravan repairs business, so they can only fit so many caravans into their shop. So we started with Google Ads, we did some SEO. Once we ranked them really well and that started to take over all of their inquiries, we could stop the Google Ads and we didn't need it anymore. So they were able to save some money. Whereas maybe you're like a showroom, you know, selling windows or something like that, and you just want to keep selling more products. So you might want to have as much real estate as possible, keep the Google Ads, have your map listing, also have organic. So, you know, depending on the business and what your goals are, you can kind of make some decisions there. SEO obviously takes a lot longer, and I always compare it to like running a marathon. You know, overtaking the first 35 people is pretty easy, but those last kind of, you know, seven or eight people at the end is much harder, right? So it is something that takes time. You should be seeing progress, but you know, you're racing other people, right? So the success also depends a lot on what other businesses are doing in that same space. With Google Ads, it really comes down to your return on investment and what you would need to invest. A good example is like if you're a plumber in just about any larger regional center or city, you got to have big budgets. You know, even if you're a small business, unfortunately, the cost per click is high. There's a lot of competition. There's a lot of search, but a lot of people want those top 3 or 4 positions. So the cost is just expensive. Whether you're a national plumber or you're a sole trader, it's just the price is what the price is, you know? And so, yeah, there's definitely some consultation needed there in terms of your industry and competition as to whether it's the right move, you know, and where you're at with your business. So that's kind of the Google side of things. And then Meta Ads is essentially your Facebook and Instagram stuff. You know, with Meta, we typically say that if you couldn't kind of convince someone to buy it, whether they're in the market or not, or we can't really specifically target the audience, it may not be the right platform. Good example is if you're a criminal lawyer, it doesn't matter how good my ad is. If someone doesn't need a criminal lawyer, there's nothing I could do to convince them to hire one, right? So, and things like emergency plumbing, it's like you're not going to wait to scroll on Facebook to find an emergency plumber if you need one. You're going straight to Google. So, you know, depending on your service, you just need to think about that, you know. But often for a lot of trades and home improvement businesses, we use Meta as a bit of a support for the work that we do on search engines, which can be really effective, especially if you have a visual product. We were joking the other day, we're running an air conditioning campaign and we're like, oh, so boring. Like, how do we make ads that people give a shit about when it's air conditioning?
How do you make aircon sexy?
Yeah, so we were cracking up in the office trying to come up with all these things like, all right, who needs aircon? Who can we convince? And we were in stitches about going, right, women who are going through menopause, right, let's target, So like,
100%.
yeah, it's hard. Whereas, with our natural stone and porcelain business, it's like, it's awesome because it's such a visual product and it's like you can make it so interesting to watch and look at and the transformations and stuff. But it's like, if you're a plumber, it's pretty hard work. So,
Yeah. Yep.
yeah, it really depends on your business, your industry, your geographical location, the size of your business, as to what you should generally do. The only thing that is for sure is if you are looking to make immediate return on investment, so you're really wanting to shorten the time it takes to get a return on that, SEO is something that you might hold off on. So you need to be able to treat SEO like a little bit of an electricity bill that you just pay for a while, because while you should see progress straight away, you're not going to get return on that investment until you're in those top 5, top 3 positions, and that can take a lot of time depending on where your business is at. So that's one of my main recommendations is people will convince you that you have to be doing SEO, but you have to be able to afford to do SEO. That's the kicker.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. So just to simplify, essentially the goal of those 3 types of marketing is to increase your searchability. Is that the short version, Lex? Or
Yeah, I mean, with Meta, it's probably more about discoverability. So, for example, if we're, on the search engines and people are searching for natural stone and porcelain suppliers, and then they start getting served ads across Facebook and Instagram for other suppliers, we can kind of sneaky get an ad in there to present as an alternative. And I'll give you, if you want to do a test about how it works, this is a really good one. Go to the Ruggable website. The business Ruggable.
yep. Yes.
So if you go to the Ruggable website, you'll start to be followed around with ads for Ruggable, right, across Meta and Instagram. And then if you click on one of those ads, you'll start to see other random rug businesses fill your feed, right? So there is an opportunity there where it's like Facebook can go, ooh, this person's in the market for a rug, and they've looked at Ruggable, and then there's these other businesses that are going, hey, we're an alternative, and so those ads start to appear. So that's the power of Meta. It's like if you haven't been discovered on the search engine, there's still an opportunity to identify that person is in market and start to present the ads in that way. So yeah.
I love it. And how many times have you been at a dinner party and people you start having a conversation, and now Ruggable's going to start popping up in our feed because we're all paranoid that Messenger's listening to our conversations or whatever it may be. But
yeah,
that is like how powerful these tools can be when they're all like working
yeah,
in conjunction, which is just huge. So
yeah. And look, it's funny because people are always like they're listening and stuff, and there's a lot of circumstances where it can feel like they're listening, but it's very explainable. It's like, well, someone else within the same Wi-Fi, IP address did a search for a Rolex watch, and then we were chatting about Rolex watches, and then all of a sudden you're seeing, a Rolex watch ad on your feed, but it's because there was something that happened that triggered the behavior, right? There has been some weird shit though that I've seen where I'm like, there's no way that I searched for that. So I'm not going to comment on whether they do or don't, because who knows, I used to work for News Corp, and man, the data that they have on people there is wild. So I wouldn't put it past any of them. But officially, no, they don't listen.
no.
But they are very, very clever at using these algorithms to identify patterns. So like, something as simple, for example, as like if you've been looking at real estate, businesses, and you're starting to get real estate ads on the back of that, then you could be put into a bucket of someone who is likely to buy furniture in the next few months, right? So Facebook and Instagram have so many points of data, on you that it collects this pattern, and then can identify what they know before you know what you're about to buy, so it's pretty crazy. Yeah,
it really is beautiful. And so Lex, tell us a bit, you've pretty much marked off all of my questions that through our conversation, which is awesome. But people are always a bit like, oh, what happens when I call someone like
Yeah.
Lex? Like, what are they going to do to me or need from me? Or what's my level of commitment to the process?
Yeah, I think there's probably two things that I can cover off in terms of getting the best out of an engagement with a marketing agency. The hardest ones for us to work with is when we say, tell us about your business, tell us about where your leads are coming from, what's your conversion rate, you know? So really knowing the numbers of your business is really important. So my favorite clients is when they go, if we get X amount of inquiry, 20% of them are rubbish, not the right thing, not the jobs that we want. Of the remaining 80%, 40% go to a quote. And then, 75% of those we would win. And the ones that we don't win is based on price. And we go, brilliant, love this. Because we can then go, great, where are those leads coming from? Oh, mostly they're coming from word of mouth. Okay, so we know they're going to have a higher conversion rate than cold stuff. So now we can get a bit of a feel for what sort of results that we can expect, right? Because I can say, great, well, if you're closing, let's just make it a nice, easy number. Let's say it's 20% of all your inquiries are becoming a client, and you know that your average client is worth $2,000 to you. And we say, right, you're going to need to invest $8,000 in your marketing per month. That includes management, SEO, Google Ads, and Meta, for example. Then we can say, we think we can deliver, 200 leads for that amount. If you're closing 40 of those at $2,000 a month, then that's an $80,000 return. How does that sit for you if you're investing 8 and getting 80 back? And they can go, yep, great. And we can go, cool. What's your most profitable service? How do we focus on those ones? What's your priority? Maybe it's jobs not that are the most profitable, but maybe they're easier, maybe they're faster, maybe you're overstaffed in that area, So for me, the biggest green flag for an agency that you're talking to is when they ask you those questions, right? Like, tell me about your services. Like, a really simple, good example is like flooring. So if you're a flooring business, you might do hybrid, vinyl, carpet, and timber. I could talk to 2 different flooring businesses, and one of them would say, we love hardwood, give us as much hardwood as possible, really high revenue, great profit, big jobs, tie up our team for ages. That's the stuff that we want. And then I could speak to another one that goes, oh, we bloody hate hardwood. It's such a pain. The clients are a nightmare. We want to do the hybrid vinyls in and out. We just work with the investors. They don't give a shit. That's what we want, right? So the exact same business could have 2 completely different goals. So if you're talking to an agency and they're just talking to you about SEO, Google Ads, Meta, or whatever, and they're not taking the time to really understand the business and your priorities and what your margins are and whether it's even possible to get a return, then that's a bit of a red flag. I wouldn't be going with an agency like that, because it needs to be a partnership, with the agency, and they have to really understand the business. And, a good example was we did a campaign for a custom glass shower screens, right? Custom shower screen. And we were talking to him, and it's relatively new business. And it was like, it's $1,200 or $1,300 for a normal screen. We make $400 on that. And then we were like, okay, well, when we look at the cost per click on Google, and then we talk about the cost per lead, you're going to make like $50, So that's not this is not the right method, or you need to be upping your prices, or you need to be selling 3 screens at a time, or we need to look at other methods for marketing your business, because this channel isn't going to return for you. So, going with someone who can understand that, but also knowing your numbers. So if you know your numbers, then that really helps us to be able to set the right expectations as well, and make sure that the recommendations we're making are the right sort of thing. The biggest, in terms of time commitment and things like that, typically for us, it's usually in the first month we need a bit, and it's like mainly access, it's creative, and for most home improvement and trades businesses, our biggest challenge is creative, is getting video, photos, that sort of stuff. What works really well on Meta and Google there's a certain type of Google campaign that can utilize photo and video, is talking to camera. And I know that tradies hate that. um, but it's easier with practice. And I would really implore everybody to start doing it. And, you know, the best method is, rather than trying to script it, is to just you can get a Rode lapel mic, one of those mics that you clip on. Sound makes a really big difference to the quality. So they're $250 from JB Hi-Fi, Rode mic, lapel mic. Get one of those, and on every single job, just go, hey guys, we're here today in Ballarat where we've got a block drain. So we're going to take you through a little bit about what we do on a job like this, right? And just get footage. It doesn't have to be, you know, cinematography, but just get it and just keep going. Even if you fuck it up, just go, okay, and I'll start again. All right, and go again. Just keep rolling. And because there's so much we can do with that. We can remove the audio, we can speed it up, we can put a voiceover over the top. There's so much that we can do. Photos isn't enough. You know, you got to get the video, and the talking to camera is the stuff that works really, really well. And it takes practice, but I would really implore people to do it, because if you have that asset library, it makes our job much easier. So generally speaking, the first month is where there's a little bit more involvement. And then after that, it's typically approvals or review meetings. We try to do a bit of a quarterly or 6-month review where we just check in with, like, where is the business at? Have things changed? Have you got a focus change? You know, are you seeing the leads converting into business? And a lot of our businesses are really open with us about their revenue, their goals, their leads, their close rate, what's happening with their team, because we can adjust with them on that, and a good marketing agency will do that.
Amazing. So much in there. I think everybody will be like feeling so much more comfortable about the topic, Lex. So thank you so much for your time. It's been hugely beneficial. So just to finish off, how do people get in touch with you guys?
Yeah, so our website is vastly.com.au, so vastly.com.au. There's a form you can fill in. There is a phone number, but it comes through to my mobile, and I'm often on meetings and stuff, so I'm a bit shit with answering the phone. But if you fill in a form, it goes to Maddie, who's like our business strategist. So yeah, she's a delight. So you'll have a chat with Maddie, and then typically you'll get into a meeting with myself and Maddie, and we kind of put all the pieces together and give you a bit of a recommendation. Even if, like, we've really built our reputation on being ethical. So if you're not sure whether you're ready or if it's the right time, or you know, feel free to reach out, and we can still chat to you and give you some tips and ideas. And, you know, one of our core values is doing the right thing. And so we never do the hard sell. And it was funny, even with you, actually, Kate, we were talking about potentially marketing for ladies with tradies, and we went, it's just not our niche, you know, like, it's not, I'm not confident that we can do the best job for you, because we focus on tradies, not on tradie coaching, you know? So, we will always do that. The other thing we do offer as well is audit. So even if you're with an agency and maybe you think that it's actually pretty good, but you just want another opinion, we can do a quick audit that's free. We also do a paid audit that's way more in depth. So there's a few different options, and if it's not us, we can try and point you in the right direction of someone that can help.
Amazing. That's so good. And yes, can vouch for the process. As we always say, everybody that we sort of link up with, we like to do to ourselves first before we recommend them to others. And so having Lex and Maddie meeting with them, and them having a really good conversation about even the direction for us as a business, and just found you guys to be super easy to work with. The honesty is incredible, and same as us, Lex. It's like, if we think we're the right people for you, we're probably going to let you know. But we'll point you in the direction you need to go. And so I really appreciate that about Vastly Digital. Thanks so much for your time, Lex. Hopefully,
thanks for having me.
Cyclones anytime soon. All of the info for Vastly Digital be in the show notes. We're really grateful for your time, and we'll catch up soon. Thanks, mate.
Thank you so much.